very much. Okay, so we'll start with public comment, and in the interest of time and getting through the agenda, we're going to set the public comment at 3 minutes. And let me get my timer out here. And then hopefully we'll have some more members come in where we'll get to a quorum, and then we'll move on to the action items. We'll start with Eddie Paulsgrove. Just right up here, there's a microphone. Get close to one of the microphones there, that'll be great. Yeah.
Oh.
Yep. And if you just set it down, you can hold it, or you can
I probably don't need it, actually.
Yeah, turn it that way, though. Turn it towards you. There we go. Thank you.
My name is Eddie Paulsgrove. I'm a geologist, retired from the Army Corps of Engineers as a regulatory senior project manager. For the Corps, I've worked in HTR, hazardous radiological toxic waste, environmental fields, and geotechnical. And I just want to mention I'm here to talk about the oil and gas proposed ordinance. I've got a couple things to say, try to keep it simple. Start with the geology section on page 10. The proposed ordinance does mention that the Middle Rio Grande is a rift valley, an active fault zone. So just keep that in mind. I know it's going to be talked about later. Active faults, movement could impact on the drilling and reinjection of drilling fluids. The ordinance on page 17 talks about oil and gas resources in the Middle Rio Grande Basin. And they cite New Mexico Tech's report of 2018 as supplemented towards the end of 2018. What they left out, though, is the risk and susceptibility tables and information that was provided by Tech. Considering the conditions of the Middle Rio Grande Basin, the susceptibility is no less than moderate and likely high. The susceptibility of contaminating the aquifer with either drilling fluid or the byproducts of the drilling process, fracking process, is likely moderate to high. So I would really like to know from everybody, how much susceptibility are folks willing to risk to contaminate the aquifer, our only source of water, at least in Rio Rancho where I live. I would like for folks, to go back. Your links don't work when I try to access the Broadhead report from New Mexico Tech. You've got links at the end of your ordinance, but they don't work. So I'd like to request that maybe you can get those to work. As a regulatory project manager, I can tell you that even though there is some preemptive state law with regards to the ability to horizontally drill and frack and re-inject, and that the possibility of a taking would exist if the mineral rights owners were told they could not access or exploit their resources at all. That isn't the case here. There are modifications and protections that can be put into place that would still allow the active exploitation of their resources, as long as there were protections in place and considerations and third-party reviews given. As of this point, I have not seen any data other than some industry geologist with a blue magic marker marking on an illustration to show what he thinks is safe. So I won't take up much more of your time. I just wanted to make sure everyone understood that there is a moderate to high susceptibility risk, and so please keep that in mind and put in the proper protections to ensure that our aquifer is safe. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Melissa Holman.
Hi, I'll just try to be very brief, and I'm going to just read straightforward. You're a very intelligent group of people, and all I'm asking for is that you truly think about our group situation here in New Mexico, the land of the champion. I recently attended the Chamber of Commerce meeting, and afterwards, out in the hallway, the gentleman speaking was being interviewed by, I believe, KOA TV. I did not video this interview, but I listened. And during the interview, they stopped and asked Marty Durbin to re-answer his question, the question, and the talking points clearer. And these talking points were of oil and gas. I watched these talking points the next day being posted visually on their news coverage on TV. Yes, Antoinette had a brief, you all know who Antoinette is, I'm sure, had a brief sentence covered, but I found it outrageous that a fair and unbiased news organization reports this way. Again, all I am asking is that you truly understand and listen to the scientists, their reports, and the real-life people living with the horrific dangers on our health, on our water, and our air. I'm begging you to listen to your conscience and learn the facts of what this means to us. Air travels, water is life. Listen to your conscience. Thank you.
Thank you. Elaine Semino.
Good morning.
Good morning.
My name is Elaine Chimino, and I am here to talk a little bit about the proposed guidance of oil and gas. And one of the main complaints that I have about it is that it talks about produced water. It talks about how to use it, and this has not even been regulated by the state yet. But yet, the guidance for produced water is in the oil and gas guidance. So I think that's very premature. And I wanted to submit the health impacts on the science on produced water from California, where that is being used, and what they're finding now of how it impacts agriculture, the endocrine systems in trees and plants, how it doesn't doesn't do anything for the contaminants in the soil. Usually the soil will absorb those contaminants. That's not happening. And so we have a lot of health impacts that are not being taken into consideration. We were asking you to strike all information on produced water out of that guidance. I would like to submit this to you, and if you would, please copy it to every member of the full board on this, because I think it's very important. The science is in. We do not need a consortium that has biased science. We have oil and gas buying the science in New Mexico to do produced water, to recycle, reuse. Produce water on agriculture and for beneficial use. I think that will be challenged in the courts because fracking waste is not water that is a beneficial use and is not a water right in the state of New Mexico. So I do believe that HB 549 or 546 will be challenged in the courts as it moves forward. I suggest you strike all issues of produced water out of the guidance. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Joe Munley?
Good morning. I became interested in the fracking and oil, gas in the Uruguay Valley by attending the hearings in Sandoval County, where I discovered over 2 years the main problem was facts and not listening to the facts. Oil and gas representatives would say there was no danger to health, water, or air. The next person who spoke would have a state list of, I think it was 16,000 oil spills that they shared with the committee. So I also attended the Chamber of Commerce, I think it was called Legislative Forum, where one of the state legislators told the group that the industry has priority for him, so get in contact with him, and that that I also heard that New Mexico was the most environmental friendly oil and gas production in the world. I heard that all or most of the state elected officials, including the state senators and governor, were with it. They got it that we would need to frack the next, whatever, 10, 20, 30, 40 years, whatever it takes to empty the Permian Basin. So I was a little upset. That's probably why I'm speaking here today. So how this relates to the Rio Grande is, I think, the continued lack of ability to look at the middle. Sandoval County was set up to produce an ordinance that would look at the facts and find something that worked, but that didn't happen or couldn't happen because people were unable to look at the facts. So I just asked you to be aware of the facts and the scientific studies. You have the most recent study that 300,000 people, or 300 million people would be flooded out by, I think, 2050 in the coastal cities of the world. So whether or not it's even viable to frack in the Rio Grande Valley, it will have a great destruction for the water here and the air and the health of the citizens. So I guess that's all that I wanted to say. Thank you.
Thank you. And we had Norm Gamay?
It's gone.
I'm sorry.
Thank you, members of the Council of Governments. My name's Norm Gong. I'm a retired water resources engineer and manager. I work for the city of Albuquerque, where I was water resources director, and I was the lead person for the city in the development of the plan to use San Juan Channel water in conjunction with the aquifer. I also was a lead in preparing the Albuquerque Grande County Groundwater Protection Policy and Action Plan, the GPAP. I have 2 points from that experience that I'd like to relate to you. The groundwater resources of the Albuquerque Basin are precious. We will be seeing reduced surface water supplies in the future as a result of climate change and warming, even if precipitation remains constant. Increased temperatures will consume significant additional quantities of water due to evaporation. We have to have the aquifer to maintain water supplies. The oil and gas resources in the basin, or the potential resources, are marginal at best, perhaps non-existent. I think that's a fair reading of the facts. The risk far outweighs the reward. Half the people of the state of New Mexico, over half the people and half the economy, rely on the groundwater resources of the Albuquerque Basin, and they should not be put at risk. Your guidelines should say no fracking in the Albuquerque Basin, no oil and gas activities. They are not a good neighbor. The second point I have for you is it's very clear at this point that we must adapt to reduce surface water supplies. We are going to face difficulties, I believe, in the Middle Valley in reducing our surface water demands so as to provide a fair share of the river to the New Mexicans and Texans who get their water from Elephant Butte. We have to limit our supplies so that water can pass through to provide the legal share that those people depend on. We need to start paying attention to that in a way that we have not. I'm happy to report that government agencies are beginning to pay attention. The New Mexico Interstate Stream Commission took a significant step at its meeting this month. But some policies, including that of the Water Utility Authority, in my opinion, fly in the face of hydrologic reality. And I think we have to get real. Thank you.
Thank you.